What's up, guys? Welcome back to another show. Listen, the morning after, the night before, where Arsenal had a fantastic win at St Mary's. Joining me to discuss last night's game and all things Arsenal is Harry Simew from the Chronicles of a Gooner. Harry, how you doing?
I'm good, mate. Thank you for having me. Really looking forward to this.
Yeah, no worries. And Harry, I just want to get your initial thoughts on last night. What did you make of it?
I really enjoyed the performance. I thought Arsenal were, really dangerous when they attacked. I thought defensively at times maybe we were a little bit exposed, but I think that's part and parcel of what happens when you want to play a little bit more of an expansive game, when you want to press teams higher up the pitch like we did last night. I think in the end, the kind of biggest takeaway from that was that Mikel Arteta's decision to rotate at the weekend was probably vindicated because Kieran Tierney was unavailable. Mikel Arteta revealed that he was unavailable on Saturday as well. That's why he wasn't involved. They always knew that Emil Smith-Rowe wasn't going to be able to play the full 90 minutes. And we saw him limp off. Thomas Partey, another one who was rested at the weekend from the start, had to go off injured as well. So I think we're starting to see that this kind of packed fixture schedule is having an impact on our squad. Not just us, it's having an impact on lots of teams. But I think Mikel Arteta had to choose one game or the other. It's as simple as that. And I think whilst there is a possibility of Arsenal finishing in the top four, albeit a slim chance, it doesn't really matter. The fact is we've got to be aiming for it while it's there. So I was delighted that Mikel got the result last night because I felt like there would have been a lot of unnecessary heat on him had we failed to get all 3 points last night.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I said this at the weekend when I was doing a watch along for the FA Cup game. I said, you know what? I'm not devaluing the cup in any which way possible, but at the start of the season, the FA Cup on my list of priorities was fairly low because we've won it so many times. I think, because we don't have the squad at the moment, to compete on all fronts. I just think we have bigger priorities this season with the Europa League and pushing for that top four, however slim it is to try and get there. I still think that the FA Cup was a bit low down on the list of priorities for this season.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right to make that point. I think in terms of the club's objectives, it would have been probably third. You would have had the Premier League, the Europa League, and then the FA Cup. So you can understand why Mikel decided to do what he did. He had to prioritise one or the other. And unfortunately, with it being third in our list, and given the amount of games we've got coming thick and fast, and the whole general nature of this season, you can understand why he did it. I think he took a lot of unnecessary stick off the back of that decision. But I think he was proven right in the end. And I think that Arsenal's goal as a football club right now has got to be to get back in the Champions League. And unfortunately, as much as we love the FA Cup, as much as we value it, me as an Arsenal fan growing up, I've been lucky enough to see Arsenal win it 8 times now. So obviously it's something that means an awful lot to me, but ultimately it doesn't offer a route back into the Champions League, does it? Which is what Arsenal are aiming for. So it was always going to be further down the priority list than some would have you believe. And we just have to accept it and move on. It's not great. Yes, we'd have liked to have progressed, but it is what it is for me.
Yeah, and I get why people want to win the cup because it's a great competition. But we're as a club are struggling financially at the moment, and I just feel that having Champions League finances behind us, it will speed up their rebuilding process a little bit.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's exactly what it will do. And we talked about it time and time again. We talked about the fact that Arsenal have been running on a UEFA Champions League wage structure on a Europa League income, and that just simply isn't sustainable. It doesn't work. And that's why, fast forward 3-4 seasons, you're looking at an Arsenal side having to dip into the loan market to bring players in to plug holes. That's where we're at the moment. Add to that the impact of the global pandemic, which has hit all the football clubs. More so, us and Spurs, we get the most revenue from match days. So you can understand why our two clubs are suffering more than others. But, it's just, for me, I think that we as fans sometimes have to appreciate that our objectives, what we want, is not necessarily in line with what the clubs are. And the clubs are to get back in the Champions League for the finance. Arsenal fans will sit there and go, well, we're not going to win the Champions League, so what's the point in playing in it? That's not the point. That's not how the club look at it. Just getting to the group stage is worth an awful lot of money. You're talking about kind of finishing, the difference between finishing 8th and 6th being something like £10 million in prize money in the Premier League alone. So, there's that incentive as well. So I just think that Arsenal were right to have to prioritise something. I think they were right to pick the league over the FA Cup. I know a lot of people disagree, and that's fine. Everybody's entitled to their view. But for me, I've got no real gripes about it. I think the players that were selected against Southampton in the Cup were good enough to go out and put in a better display than they did. And unfortunately, the buck lies with them.
Yeah. And, and as well, when you look at the FA Cup game as well, we were the worst team, on the day. Southampton fully deserved their win.
Yeah, they did. They were brilliant. They pressed us. They harried us. They won the ball high up on the pitch. Basically, all the things that we did last night in the Premier League, they did them on Saturday. And you saw, didn't you, the impact of Southampton not really rotating. I know Ralph Hasenhüttl's hands were tied. He's got a lot of injuries at the moment to contend with. He made 3 changes to the side that played on Saturday. The goalkeeper, Alex McCarthy, came back in, but he was without both his fullbacks. Bertrand was suspended, and Carl Walker-Peters picked up a knock on Saturday. So Ralph Hasenhüttl's hands were tied. He couldn't really rotate without weakening his side too much. And I think you saw that in patches. I think credit to Southampton, they still, gave a good account of themselves last night at times, but I think you saw their intensity drop at certain periods in the game, and as a result, Arsenal took advantage of that.
Yeah, definitely. And, last night I thought, because when you look at the team that we had out last night, it was a much better team than the one on Saturday. With probably the most notable change is that Pepe come in. And having said that, Pepe had a really good game last night, in my opinion. What I want to ask you about this, about Pepe, because he is a player that divides opinion. Just because he came with that £72 million price tag, and he's had flashes of brilliance, but nothing on a consistent basis. So, do you think with Pepe, it's just a case of he's still settling in, or do you think we overpaid for an underachieving player?
I don't think there's any doubt about the fact that we overpaid. We definitely overpaid, and I think one of the main reasons that Raul Sanllehi was pushed out the door was because he was found to have, conducted some deals that didn't really represent a good value for the club, and that was certainly one of them. So I do think we overpaid for Nicolas Pepe, but that doesn't mean he's not a talented player. That doesn't mean there's not something there. There's not something we can tap into. I've said it before. I feel like Nicolas Pepe is somebody who very much needs an arm around him, needs to feel the love of the manager, of his teammates, of the fans, in order to kind of motivate himself. There are some players that don't need that, and there are some that simply do. And I think he is one that does. I think he was better suited playing on the left yesterday because he was less predictable. When he plays on the right-hand side, he's always going to cut inside onto that stronger foot. Whereas to his credit, yesterday, despite playing on the left, he did cut inside a few times. He did go on the outside on occasions. And I thought, along with Cedric, he combined really, really well. So I do think there's a talent there in Nicolas Pepe. Is it £72 million worth of talent? No, it's not. But that doesn't mean we should discard him. He's still got more to offer than Willian for me. He's still got more to offer than Reiss Nelson. I genuinely believe that. I put him in a bracket above. And I think even at this point, and I know people would probably disagree with this, given that he's coming back, given that he's still so young, and fitness is going to be a bit of an issue for him over the next couple of weeks and months, I still think he's got more to offer than Gabriel Martinelli in the starting lineup as well. So if you can get Pepe firing, if you can get him fit, you can get him feeling the love and kind of wanting to be there, then I think there's a really, really good player there. And I think you saw it last night. Took his goal excellently. Played a couple of really good balls actually on Saturday as well. That had the striker on the other end found the back of the net, would have been coming away from the game. Talking about some Nicolas Pepe assists. So it's fine. It's fine margins with Nicolas Pepe, and that's what makes me confident that we can get more out of him.
Yeah, definitely. I think with this whole Pepe situation as well, I think it's well and truly proven now that it doesn't matter how much you spend on a player. You're not always guaranteed a talented player, And I agree with you. He's not worth 72 million, and I think what we have to remember is that it's not his fault that he was sold for that amount and that we bought him for that amount. I feel like sometimes with Pepe, people just can't see past the price tag.
Yeah, and that's a problem, isn't it? I think with every transfer in football, unless you sign Ronaldo or Messi, every transfer has an element of risk to it, doesn't it? And I think that the price tag is significant, of course, because you could argue that that's handicapped Arsenal in doing other deals, and I get all of that. But ultimately, it's done now. And to keep hanging on to it, to keep going back to it, actually doesn't benefit anyone. As a fan, you wind yourself up about it. As Nicolas Pepe, you'll feel extra pressure because of it. As the manager, you'll feel like you have to select him because of the level of investment. Bringing up the price tag doesn't do anybody any good. So it's done now. Park it, put it to one side, and focus on the player, what he's delivering, and how we can get more out of him.
Yeah, definitely. Remember, guys, keep hitting those likes. It's really important for the growth of the channel, and do subscribe if you haven't done so already. Harry, I want to ask you about Bukayo Saka, because again, we've seen last night another terrific performance. Do you think that he now should be certainly a certain starter going forward now, because he's proven time and time again that he's just coming on leaps and bounds, isn't he?
I think he's already proven that he's a regular starter, and I think he's already become a regular starter in Mikel Arteta's eyes. He's been so impressive, and even more so since he's moved into a forward position. I felt like his versatility was kind of holding him back a little bit earlier on in the season when he was being asked to play left back and left wing back. So I'm delighted to see him playing in a wide position. I really like him from the right hand side. I love the way he cuts in, but also has that variation to his game to go on the outside of people as well. His deliveries into the box are really impressive. I mean, that assist for Lacazette's goal last night, to take that first time on your weaker foot and put it right in the sweet spot, I thought was a sensational piece of technique. So I'm really excited by what we're seeing from Bukayo Saka. I wouldn't like to put a ceiling on him because I think he's that good and he can go to the very top. Key part of this team. And for me, he should be anyway Mikel Arteta's first name on the team sheet right now.
Yeah, and I know we probably shouldn't, and I know we probably shouldn't do this because it's never good to compare a player. But who would you compare him to?
Oh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. And what I think is really, really good about Bukayo Saka is he's not that comparable to anybody, because he's not only a really efficient winger, he's a really comfortable fullback / wingback as well. You can also play him in the number 10 role. I think his versatility is what makes him stand out from the pack. To be that mature at that age, to be able to slot into different positions and never look out of place, I think is an incredible talent. And it shows you that the kid has got some serious football intelligence. And that's what I really love about him. I love the fact that he's intelligent. He's got technical ability. He's also very humble. I thought his interview after the game yesterday was really impressive. I wouldn't be able to put a direct comparison because I can't think off the top of my head of someone who's so effective on the flank, but then can slot into so many other positions as well.
Yeah, and it's certainly good to have a versatile player like that, who can just play, anywhere across the forward line. And he slotted in at left back as well last season and done a terrific job there. Listen, before I want to talk about transfers, but before I do that, I want to ask you who was your standout player yesterday?
I've got a couple. I've got three actually that I want to give a shout out to. One of them obviously is Bukayo Saka. I want to give a shout out to Cedric. I thought he was excellent. I thought he was really, really effective bombing down that left-hand side. And you got to remember, this was his left-hand side. He's a right-footed player, and I thought he didn't often struggle with the whole playing on the wrong side thing. So I was really impressed by Cedric. I thought he was excellent. I thought Nicolas Pepe was really good as well. I thought he impacted the game from the very beginning. I know maybe on the goal that we conceded, he probably got caught napping a little bit defensively, but I thought he made up for it instantly. And from then on, he was very good. I think Granit Xhaka deserves a lot of praise as well. Dominating in the midfield, obviously having Thomas Partey next to you helps. And I think the pair are forming quite a good bond and good partnership. But one of the things that Xhaka often gets criticised for is not playing enough progressive passes. And yesterday he put players through on goal on multiple occasions by looking up, playing the ball early. And I really like that side of his game. So, yeah, it's good to see him sort of being a bit more progressive as well in the midfield.
Yeah. And alongside Thomas Partey, Thomas Partey's well known for making other players around him look good because of his own quality and his own ability. And I feel with Granit Xhaka, having Thomas Partey alongside him can sort of help him with his own deficiencies as a player.
Yeah, for sure. The biggest criticism I normally have of Xhaka, that I personally normally have, I know a lot of people talk about the progression of the ball. I don't really see that as an issue with him. I think the biggest issue is his athleticism at times is not quite what you need it to be, particularly on the transition, particularly when you're playing in the Premier League. So to see him partnered up with someone who does have that athleticism and also has the mind and the understanding of the game to come across and plug holes when he does get caught out of position, obviously complements him very well. So Thomas Partey certainly making him look, not just a good player, but a very good player.
Yeah. So let's move on to transfers now, because the transfer window is in full flow. I know it's a busy time for everybody, and I know certainly it's a busy time for you. But how, in terms of Arsenal's business, how do you think we've done?
As well as I expected, if I'm honest. I didn't expect any major incomings during this transfer window. I thought it was about getting ourselves ready for the summer. And what I mean by that is trying to find resolutions to some of the situations that have been hanging around us like a bad smell of late, i.e. the Mesut Ozil one. I'm a big fan of him as a player. I think he could have offered something to the team had Mikel not frozen him out. But that's another debate for another day. But I'm glad that there's a resolution been found, because it needed to happen one way or the other. I think the moving on of Sokratis was the right thing for him. I felt it was a little harsh that he was actually frozen out of the squad completely. I don't think he deserved that. But I'm delighted for him that he's got a big move back to Greece. And then you're talking about Kolasinac going out on loan, the possibility of Mustafi's contract maybe being terminated as well. It feels like Arsenal are just kind of setting the scene for the summer. But I still wouldn't get majorly carried away about what's to come in the summer, because it's very dependent on what we do in terms of whether or not we qualify for Europe. If we don't, then I don't expect there to be major investment again. So, this season has that added importance. In terms of the players we've brought in this window, Matty Ryan, solid signing, backup goalkeeper. I think this is a smart bit of business, because he comes in on loan till the end of the season, but at the end of the season, he becomes a free agent. So if Arsenal feel like he's somebody they like, they feel like he's somebody they want to carry on with as a number two, they have that ability to snap him up on a free transfer, which is, of course, handy at this time. We're still waiting for the announcement, but we think that Martin Odegaard is going to be announced any time now. Again, decent signing under the circumstances, a player who can come in, provide support and competition for Emile Smith-Rowe, and it very much has a point to prove.
Yeah. I want to touch on I know, we've not got much time, but I want to briefly touch on the Mesut Ozil situation, just because that's the one deal that I didn't think would happen in January. I honestly thought that he would see out his contract and just go on a free. How important was it to get a resolution to that deal, to sort that out, to get a resolution to his future, to Arsenal's future, and just to, get clarification?
Yeah, it was very important. Something had to happen. Something had to give. It became toxic. There are those who feel that Mesut Ozil's camp were responsible for some of the leaks that were coming out, kind of damaging to the playing staff, damaging to what Mikel Arteta is trying to build here. So yeah, there needed to be a resolution. I've said it already. I felt that Mesut could have offered something to the team. I still regard him as a better option than someone like Joe Willock, for example, when you're trying to break a side down. But it wasn't to be. It felt like too much had happened. It's almost like a bit of broken glass. You can't really put it back together once it's got to a certain point. And so the only solution was to move him on, and as soon as possible. And credit to Arsenal, they managed to do that. And I think the interesting thing is that Mesut Ozil would have been aware that the longer he wasn't playing football for, the more his stock would fall. And so his side pushed for it as well, didn't they? And ultimately everybody got what they wanted. So yeah, I think it's the right outcome. It's the smart outcome. It's a shame because I do think he's, if not an Arsenal, I don't think he's an Arsenal legend, but I think he's someone who's up there with some of the most talented players to ever play for this club. So to leave the way he did is a little bit sad. But as I say, we're going for a rebuild, and we ain't got time to hang about. It needs to be done, needs to be resolved, and that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah, definitely. And how do you personally assess Mesut Ozil's time at Arsenal? Listen, I remember those scenes, those mad scenes when on deadline day, when we were, he was coming in and everybody just camped outside the Emirates, and it was a very much a party atmosphere. And then, he had a couple of good seasons and then started to decline as the rest of the team started to decline. So how do you personally assess his time at Arsenal?
I think you've got to kind of block out the last 18 months to give Mesut Ozil a fair assessment in terms of what he did on the football pitch. I know there was a lot of bad stuff that went on behind the scenes, but I'm trying to stay away from getting involved in the political side of it, because there clearly was, for all the talk that it was for footballing reasons. I think all of us, we've been watching football long enough to know that wasn't the case. I think obviously he came to the club, big money signing, helped Arsenal. I'm not going to say solely or did it by himself, because he didn't, but he helped Arsenal win that 9-year trophy drought. And then when Alexis Sanchez came in, I thought the pair of them were formidable. I thought they were brilliant together. And I know at the time we were all moaning that we were only finishing in the top 4. But when you think about where we are now, they certainly represent a far better time for Arsenal. So I think his Arsenal career overall was good. I think obviously when Arsene Wenger left, things changed dramatically. Unai Emery didn't really fancy him, gave him chances but didn't really fancy him. Mikel Arteta didn't really fancy him. People say that Freddie Ljungberg turned up his nose at him as well. I think Freddie Ljungberg had not really much choice, because he'd come in after Unai Emery and he had a Mesut Ozil on his hands who hadn't been playing football, who hadn't been maybe 100% fit, and he only had 3 or 4 games in charge. So yeah, I don't blame Ljungberg for it. What I find strange was the way that it went from, in Mikel Arteta's mind, yes, I need to build my team around this guy, to all of a sudden there's no place for him in the squad. And that suggests to me that more was going on behind the scenes than we as fans were aware of, because you don't go from playing, he started every single game I think in the first 10 of Mikel Arteta's, and then to go from that to not playing at all, and his performances in those games weren't bad, so it was clearly something more and something else. I just like to remember Mesut Ozil for some of the brilliant moments, the body feints, the great passes, the skill, the trickery, the vision, that bounce finish, if you remember when he used to kick the ball into the ground and confused the goalkeepers. I thought he was a joy to watch for most of his Arsenal career, but sadly, the last 18 months went sour, and we had no choice but to move him on.
Yeah, definitely. And the way I assess Mesut Ozil, I think he had a good start. You know, he had the problem with Mesut Ozil, and we come back to it, and we alluded to it with Pepe, is the consistency. You know, he wasn't doing enough on a consistent basis. Plus, at times I felt he didn't. At times on the pitch, he act like he didn't really want to be there. You know, with his body language and you know, some of the stuff he would do on the pitch. You know, having said that, I do feel with Mesut Ozil that when we signed him, we didn't go on and build a team around him, and you know, we did ask him to do stuff that he wasn't quite comfortable with doing. So I do feel like maybe you could have a little bit to, you know, you could have a little bit of sympathy for him in that respect. But yeah, listen, I think that getting a resolution in this transfer window was absolutely massive for the club, and that is just as, in my opinion, as big as any signing, because he was he was our highest earner. You know, that frees up a lot of wages. So yeah, I want to ask you who would you like to replace him? Who would you like to come in to replace him? Because we've been linked with a fair number of players. So, you know, obviously Smith Rowe's doing a fantastic job, but he needs cover. I know there's been links to Buendia. Obviously, we know that Odegaard's coming in potentially. That looks like it's potentially going to happen. So who would you think would be a suitable replacement for Mesut Ozil?
Oh, it's so difficult to say, Dan. It's so hard to say, man, because there's so many players out there, and you know, there's no point in me sort of reeling off players that are way out of our price range, or you know, that we're not going to get in. I mean, there's been a lot of links with Emiliano Buendia. I've been a little bit skeptical about that, just because I haven't seen enough of him in the Premier League, if that makes sense. You know, you're talking about someone who's played most of his career in the Championship. He's done well, did fairly well in that season he played in the Premier League. But put it this way, I'm not convinced that he's worth £40 million, which is what Norwich are likely to ask for if they were going to sell him. So I'm not completely on board with that one. I think, although the number 10 role is still alive, you need a number 10 who's a little bit more physical than Mesut was, in the sense of the ability to press, the ability to close people down. And I think one of the reasons that Emil Smith Rowe has really impressed Mikel Arteta is his work rate as well. So finding a player with that technical ability, but also the work rate is obviously the magic formula. And I'm not sure that there are many of those around. I'm going to pass on this one, mate. I couldn't give you a name because I think this needs research. I think this needs thought, but I'm not big on the Buendia stuff. Houssem Aouar is another one we've been linked with, but he feels like a bit of a deeper player than that to me. In which case, I don't know where he fits necessarily. You know, somebody in the mold of kind of like David Silva would be amazing, but we know David Silva's towards the twilight of his career. I'm not saying we're going to get him. Obviously, he's back in Spain and doing very well, but you know, that kind of mold of player, I think, is what we need. Someone who's capable of working quite hard, helping people out, but also when he gets the ball at his feet in those key areas, he's deadly with it.
Yeah. Would you not take a chance on Buendia? Because I look at Buendia, somebody like Buendia, and you know, we've overlooked these types of players before, and they've gone on to do really, really well, and then we've just scratched our heads thinking, well, why didn't we take a chance on somebody like that? You know, I know it's completely different position, but you know, we sort of overlooked N'Golo Kante. Springs to mind, and look how well he's turned out a player to be. So would you not take a chance on Buendia? I mean, I get the price tag is probably a little bit steep, but listen, Norwich are doing what any other club does and trying to get the best for their player. I just think, trying to chase these expensive signings, these difficult ones that aren't going to happen. I just don't think we're at that point at the moment. I don't think we can do any kind of deal for any expensive signing at the moment. And I definitely think Buendia is certainly doable.
I don't think, you say take a chance. I don't think we can afford to take a £40 million chance. That's the problem. And, you look at around Europe and you look at how other clubs have been impacted by what's going on in the world right now. And I just feel like you could find somebody who is a similar profile to Emi Buendia, but has more experience playing at the top flight and is more proven maybe on the European stage if you've got £40 million to spend. So spending that on a championship player for me represents too great a risk.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I just think we should. I think we should start looking at those types of players, and you never know, they might succeed. They might well succeed.
The reason you would look at those type of players, right, Dan, is because you'd feel that it would be smarter business, i.e., you'd be able to get them for cheaper. So when if you're talking about Buendia at 15, 20 million pound, I'm all for it. But the minute you hit that 30 plus bracket, I want someone proven. I want someone who's done it at the top flight, at the highest level, and he just hasn't done it.
Yeah, but then you could also flip that and say that players that have done it, players that have, look at Chelsea, for instance. They've signed Kai Havertz and Timo Werner, and they've not hit the ground running. I guess it's a catch-22, isn't it? Where do you take that chance?
Yeah, exactly. But I just feel like, given the current financial state of the club, I feel like £40 million is too much of a risk to take.
Yeah. And I want to ask you, just before we move on to the Man United game, because I know we're sort of running out of time. Do you see us doing any more business beyond Odegaard in the transfer window this month?
I don't. I think that Arsenal are on the lookout for a left back, but as I've been saying on the Chronicles of Iguna, I feel like that'll only happen if the right opportunity presents itself. And I feel like, with time running out, those who could potentially let players go will be a little bit more reluctant to do so, because of course they won't have time to replace them. So I feel like my gut feel is that there won't be any further business. But if there was to be any further business, I certainly think it'll be in the left back department. I wonder if Cedric's performances have kind of changed that, and maybe, made it a less urgent area that Arsenal feel they need to address. I don't know. But my gut feeling is no, there'll be no more incomings. But as I said, if the right opportunity comes along between now and the window closing, then there's no reason why Arsenal won't move.
Yeah. So yeah, remember, guys, do keep hitting that like button. Do keep subscribing. I just want to say hello to everybody in the chat. Jamie, Joanne, Russ, Omar, Liam, Steve, lots of you in the chat today. So yeah, big up all you guys in the chat. So Harry, let's look ahead to Man United. And I know we're vastly running out of time. So do you just want to, how do you expect in this game to go? Do you think do you think we'll get a result?
I think we can get a result. Man United have been quite good on the road this season, which obviously worries me a little bit. But I mean, for me, I said before the Southampton game that I wanted 4 points from those two fixtures. So having won at Southampton, the kind of pressure of us getting a win is a little bit relieved for me. I feel like if Arsenal get a draw, that would be a very decent result against a side who, let's make no bones about it, they're competing for the Premier League title this season. So they're right up there. They deserve some respect. We know that they're really effective on the counter-attack. They've got so much pace in those areas. Marcus Rashford, Anthony Martial, they break away with Bruno Fernandes, Pogba. They're really good in that department. So for me, I would actually, I know Mikel Arteta will probably get stick for this. I'd be a little bit more negative. I'd be a little bit more pragmatic in this one, knowing that I've got the 3 points in the bag from Southampton. I'd just sit off United and let them attack us. And if we If we can hit them on the break, then great, happy days. And if they decide that they don't want to take the risk, they don't want to throw bodies forward, and they're going to wait for us to take the game to them, then so be it. You play out a stalemate, you get your point, and you leave, and that's that. We've already beat Man United at Old Trafford this season, so we know that we're capable of it. But I do think that the result last night is significant in the way Mikel might approach this one, because he will probably have looked at it as well and thought that 4 points from those two games would be a very respectable tally. And, I know we need as many points as possible to get back to where we need to be in the Premier League table. But I think you've also got to know where you are as a team. And right now, we're not as good as Manchester United. And I think we need to probably make a couple of adjustments tactically to level out that playing field.
Yeah. And just finally, Harry, a score prediction.
I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
That's not a bad shout, actually. That's not a bad shout because, also, our home record has been absolutely shambolic this season.
Yeah.
So I think a draw would be a fair assessment, considering, where we are and, I think the league table, even if we get a draw, I think the league table is still very much wide open. We could still I know it's a slim chance, but we could still potentially get in there if we can just win more of our games, and I do feel as well that, and I've said this for time, whoever puts a consistent run in the Premier League is going to do really well. The problem is that nobody's putting a consistent run in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Listen, we've reached the end of the show. Guys, I just want to thank you, everybody who's been watching, everybody who's been commenting. Harry, listen, I want to thank you as well for joining me. I know this has been in the pipeline for ages. So thank you very much for finally for coming on and chatting to me today.
No, thank you for having me, man. Really, really appreciate it. And apologies we haven't done it sooner. It's just been the transfer window is always a really busy time in my line of work, and sometimes you can plan a day and then something will pop up and it just completely throws you. I casting my mind back to sort of last week. The Odegaard stuff came out of the blue, and that kind of took up a whole day. And then, the other day, Frank Lampard got sacked, and that kind of steers the direction of your day as well. So there's just so many things going on in the world of football right now that sometimes it's a little bit difficult to plan. So delighted that we actually got to sit down and do it. Thank you so much. Thank you for your support of my channel as well. Really, really appreciate it. And guys, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button on Dan's channel. Make sure you subscribe to the Blind Gooner. Get involved. He's putting out some really good content. So make sure you keep up to date. Turn your notifications on as well.
Yeah, listen. And likewise, go and, Harry's channel as well, The Chronicles of a Gooner. Go and check that out. It's a fantastic channel. Do go and subscribe to that. It's a really good channel. There's not many decent Arsenal channels around, but there's a few out there. So do go and check out Harry's channel. Listen, Harry, thanks for coming on. Thank you to everybody in the chat. I'll be back at some point today with another show. I'm not entirely sure because I've just got a bit of a mad day going on myself. So I'll be back later. Stay tuned. I'll put it in the community tab. All enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your morning, and take care, guys.
Cheers.